Part 110. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 1108. Go away. My mother told me that your father is poisonous and we can't play with you. Yes, you don't have a mother, so we won't play with you. My father also said that your father is a bad person and you are a little bad person. If you play with you, you will lead us into trouble. The little girl who wanted to go over and play with them pouted slightly, turned around, and ran away. She ran onto the street, facing the bustling crowd. She was a little afraid, but also a little indifferent. Children's self-esteem is sometimes the strongest, and it belongs to those delicate and fragile things, but for her, life has become a bit difficult to understand since she became sensible. Her mother left, and she would never see her again. She didn't know where her mother had gone. She only knew that her father would curse her mother for having no conscience every night when he was drunk, and then his father would sometimes lie in bed and keep struggling. Looks very scary. She was too young and didn't understand many things, but she didn't want to understand them. Her life is very long, but she doesn't know what the future will mean. She may be a little too precocious, but she doesn't know it herself. After all, her early childhood was great to her. Until she met two young men and women on the street. They looked at her with smiles, stretched out their hands to comb their hair, and asked her what she wanted to eat. She replied, "Lychee." Then, my life has taken another turn. The life in the orphanage is actually not that beautiful. The teachers and aunts will tell the children over and over again that the reason why you can eat, snack and drink now is all because of the kind-hearted uncle and Aunt Adine. Children are very innocent and they like whoever treats them well. Therefore, every time the uncle and Aunt Adine come to the orphanage, the children are always very happy. The person in charge who actually runs the orphanage knows this very well. He knows that if he wants the funders to continue to invest generously in the orphanage, they must gain a sense of satisfaction, and the love and affection of the children is the source of satisfaction. She is not exempt from vulgarity, and she was brought back by the dean, uncle, dean, and aunt herself. Every time the dean, uncle, dean, and aunt came to the orphanage, they would always talk to her alone for a while, and even take her out. Buy some new clothes and some snacks. This made her envied by the other children in the orphanage, and because she was indeed a little older than the other children, everyone regarded her as their eldest sister. She had seen the children of the dean's uncle. That little brother lying on the hospital bed. He looked tired and weak. But he is very happy. Because he has real parents, not uncles and aunts. Until one day, the dean's aunt said that she wanted to adopt her as her daughter. She was ecstatic. She finally has a father and a mother. In the icy night and biting cold wind, she was walking alone on the desolate streets. She had just come out of her first experience of the story world, and her entire outlook on life had been overturned. She was afraid. She was panicking. But at this time. But she was helpless. His uncle and aunt, his godfather and godmother, died in a car accident, and the orphanage was shut down. My own childhood. My own memories. Has been sealed. It's not easy to survive in this society, but I encountered this kind of thing again. She didn't know how long she could live. Opening the door of the rental house, a group of boys and girls gathered in the living room of her house. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. James came out with a small cake and a candle. After leaving the orphanage, some of these children were already working, and some were still going to school with her support. They used the money they collected from scrapping at other times to buy her a small cake for her birthday. That night, she cried. She felt that she had found the motivation to live again and the courage to face the next danger and strangeness. You can't start over in life, so you can only bite the bullet and keep going. And they are their own motivation. The wind howls. She stood alone on the top of the mountain crying hysterically, and at the same time she changed from her usual quiet tone and cursed. She knew they could hear it, because they weren't dead. They're not dead yet. But they threw themselves into this life or death game. The person I have always loved most. The person I miss most all the time. People who go to graves to weed during festivals and memorial days. Actually, from the very beginning, he wore a pair of masks and toyed with himself severely. Then, when you find that the experiment on yourself has not been successful, you can abandon yourself casually. That day, it rained heavily, and the girl stood on the mountain all night. In the early morning, she dragged her tired body back home. I saw May sitting there doing homework. "Sister, are you back?" Yes, she nodded, her eyes revealing something called madness. "I'm back." "Jixiang, what do you think of him?" Jixiang yawned in her arms. "They sent you back, and you didn't even give them a straight look." "The black cat in my arms is very cold, but it is only close to me. I told him to be careful of people like him. I have already warned him." Yes. He is indeed the same person as himself. The same test article. Only, I am a semi-finished product. And he. It seems to have worked. Uncle Dean, Auntie Dean, you should be waiting for him to mature, right? I'm waiting too. Your goddaughter. I miss you very much. Sister, why is all this happening? Impossible. How can this be? Mei's eyes completely lost focus. He is like a walking corpse. Not everyone is lychee, and not everyone is Subai. When you find out that your love since childhood and your long-term closeness are just a scam and use, most people will immediately suffer a mental breakdown. Those who can bear it are not ordinary people. When Subai was killing her, Mei didn't cry. What she did have was that there was nothing more mourning than death. However, she felt it in another world. But he did nothing, just continued to study his formation. Perhaps she should feel sad. Possible she should mourn for a while. But she felt, I need to learn from those two people. Otherwise, after all, it is impossible for him to catch up with those two people. How much more to surpass them? They can even use their two biological sons as guinea pigs to play with and design. Own. And why not? What are you still playing at? Haven't you had enough? She was reminding Subai. Reminding this person who is just like me. Originally, she thought that Subai would be like her, filled with hatred that didn't need to be stirred up at all. A spark of fire could ignite the totem of crazy revenge, but he didn't do that. He even fought to the death with Qin Bing. In a bloody battle with Qin soldiers. What's the point of his fight? She doesn't understand. She doesn't understand. She sacrificed everything. Gave everything. Abandoned everything. It's not just to see Subai die in battle for no apparent reason. She couldn't help it anymore and took action. But Subai didn't take her appearance seriously. Even though there were more than a dozen weapons stuck in his body, Subai still sneered. If we are defeated, won't the broadcast end? Yes. The broadcast is over. The man and woman also died. One's own revenge was avenged. But she was unwilling. She wants more. She wants more. What she wants is not just revenge, she also wants compensation. Su Yuhang came out, and he found the 20 years he had lost, sweeping everything in one fell swoop. She had also been confused as to which one was her real dean and uncle. 20 years later, she could dominate almost everything, but she still chose the same path 20 years ago. The old rich man could even plan for himself and even design the address where he would build an orphanage and set up an array, if these two people had not broken up but had stayed together. What will be the result? However, she didn't bother to ask what the outcome would be, and he ignored herself, thinking that everything was under control. So, just take a look. The highest level of life is right in front of you. But she couldn't fit into it. She felt like a fool, a hopeless fool. All efforts have been made and all roads have been paved. After years of hard work. In the end, the answer I got was, I was not qualified to enter. How is this possible? This is impossible. Lychee looked up to the sky and let out a long roar. At this time, she was almost crazy. She looked around fiercely, and finally landed on Subai. You already knew all this, didn't you? Subai hugged the little guy and looked at her, shaking his head. Subai didn't know, and he didn't want to know. However, the scene at this time does have a strong sense of irony. The agency was too clever in its calculations, but it cost Ching Ching her life. The poison in Lychee's body has been released. At this time, she is already strong on the outside but strong on the inside, but her anger almost burned her whole body. Compared with Su Yuhang and Lu Menjiao's free and easy self-destruction when facing failure, Lychee seems a bit naive in this regard. But this is an era where heroes are judged by results. Losers think they are smart people before they fail. The little guy's figure has begun to blur. Subai held him and walked step by step towards the black circle of light. Why? The sharp whistling sound of Lychee's echoed everywhere. This moment. She seemed to have returned to her childhood, when those little playmates mocked her origin and mocked her family. Mom, this screams so miserable. The fat man's spirit flashed on the monk's shoulders. Hey, why do I feel that this cry makes me feel the same way? It seems that this kind of grievance and confusion has happened to me many times, fatty. Terror broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 1109. Lychee left the train. She was not crazy or hysterical in any way. She seemed very calm, but she had lost her previous vigor and heroism. The poison has dispersed, but her consciousness has not entered the broadcast. For her, life has actually entered a countdown. Perhaps, compared with the dissipation of vitality and fundamentals, her hard work is all in vain in the end. It is the most difficult to accept. This made Chen Ru catch up. Chen Ru had always regarded Lychee as the target of her pursuit. Now, both women have gotten the same ending because of their madness. Boss Liang looked at Xiezhen, who was seriously injured in his arms, and then at the Lychee floating away above him. He did not chase after the Lychee, but continued to look at Xiezhen. Some things are not that he cannot understand, but that he is afraid of seeing them too clearly. The rest of the audience, including Fatty, Monk Buddha and others, were also waiting quietly. They don't know what kind of outcome they will face later. Su Yuhang is dead and Lychee is gone. How will things in the train end? Whoa! The train suspended in the air suddenly started again. This is a signal. Everyone below stood up and looked into the sky. Train, is it leaving? So. What about radio? Who is radio? Or, does radio still exist? The train's doors reopened at this point and it slowly descended. Although everyone was still unclear about the situation, the meaning was already obvious. Everyone except Chen Ru entered the carriage again. The train started moving again, accelerating slowly. Everyone who survived was sitting in their seats, waiting for the sound of the radio, but the radio did not make any sound to them. Next moment, one after another fate cards appeared in front of them. This is the fate card they left behind when they came, and now Broadcasting House has given it back to them. No one acted rashly. They managed to survive, so they naturally became more cautious at this time. The first one to take action was the monk. He held his life card in his hand. The next moment, the life card disappeared, but the monk remained intact. The fat man's soul also wrapped the life card, and it was the same situation. The life card disappeared. Buddha stretched out his hand to hold the life card, and the life card also disappeared. Someone took the initiative, and the following things became simple. Everyone held their own destiny cards. "Does this mean the end?" Hills asked. He didn't know who he was talking to, but he still needed to ask. However, no one responded to him. Next moment, the train began to vibrate, and another door appeared next to everyone. Some people understood it, and some people didn't. The monk put his hands together and recited the Buddha's name. "Amitabha, if you want to continue, just continue sitting here. If you want to end it, go there. One step is human, the other step is God. Everyone, make your own choice." Now that the matter was clear to the monk, he smiled helplessly. Monks pay the most attention to cause and effect, but at this moment, he knew that there was no way he could repay the cause and effect he owed. The monk stood up and walked into the door. Then, the monk walked out of it. However, when he walked out, his face was serious, as if he was a different person. He sat back down and closed his eyes. "Damn it, let's not play anymore. Damn it, Dabai, do we still have a chance to drink together?" The fat man's soul floated in front of the door. He was a little hesitant and a little sad. Transforming from a human to a god is a fantasy for most people, but transforming from a god to a human is a nightmare for gods. The fat man couldn't bear to part with his own power and the feeling of being a god. But he knew better that this was a choice specially created for them by that person. Should he continue this endless game and become cannon fodder in the next world after this world is over? Or should he go back to the previous world and live out his life calmly? The fat man feels that he actually has no choice, really no choice. "Dabai, will you come out again? Can I see my godson again?" The fat man hesitated in front of the door. Then he shouted, "If you have a chance, come and see us. If I have any good things, I'll give them to you. I'll give them to you, okay?" As soon as he finished speaking, Fatty's soul penetrated the car door. Next moment, a fat man with a complete body walked out of the door. Like the previous monk, he sat back in his original position with an expressionless face. Hill sat there and watched with cold eyes, which was actually an attitude. He. A middle-aged man stood up. "I want to go back and see my son." The old fireman walked into the door, and when he walked out again, he walked back to his original position. Boss Liang expressed his gratitude. His move surprised many people, because no one expected that Boss Liang would actually give up. "This couldn't be a better ending for us." Boss Liang looked at Xie Zhen, who was still unconscious in his arms. "You should also agree with my choice, right?" The next moment, Boss Liang walked into the door holding Xie Zhen. Immediately afterwards, the new Boss Liang and the recovered Xie Zhen walked out of the door, and they sat back in their original positions coldly. Buddha is still sitting there. When the monk and the fat man chose to leave, he still didn't move. Somewhere in the dark, Buddha seemed to feel a pair of eyes looking at him. With a sense of doubt and questioning, Buddha smiled slightly. "Road. They're all gone. I'm afraid you'll be alone." Buddha looked around again. "Those who should leave have already left, and some are clones. I have no regrets and no worries. Those who wanted to leave have already left. After all, these clones are not as good as the original ones. Those who don't want to leave do it for themselves. At the end of the day, there has to be one person left. The next time you fight, I sincerely want to help you fight, and I want to help you continue." Buddha told his reasons. There is nothing he can't let go of, and there's nothing he can't think about. Instead of going back, it's better to continue. At the very least, when broadcast needs to attack the next world, there will be a person holding a hatchet and fighting with all his heart, knife after knife. Not just for your own survival. Even more so for his friends. Hills shrugged, reached out and knocked on the car window. Is anyone else getting off the bus? No one responded. Those who wanted to leave have already left, but most people still don't want to go back and become ordinary people. Then let's drive, Hills shouted with a smile. By the way, let's discuss something with you. If we still want to build a place of enlightenment this time, we can design it better and more comfortably. Don't create a place for me where I can even shiver while eating instant noodles in the freezing cold. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Disyao. Chapter 1110. Come on, let's go together. The fat man held a small flag in his hand and was wearing a dark yellow Taoist robe, commanding a group of young men and women in front of him who were also wearing Taoist robes. Dong dong dong. Dang dong dong. Oh oh oh. Some people hold wooden swords, some people hold gongs, some people play suanas, some people beat drums, and some people jump around and recite mantras. The originally messy rural bass here music band became orderly under the guidance of Fatty. Everyone followed the rhythm of the tune and did their own thing, each performing their duties, exuding a solemn feeling, just like a symphony. A sense of déjà vu. The fat man jumped up and down, directing every detail. He is very attentive because this is his career and his life. This team is everything to him. Okay, stop. The fat man raised the flag in his hand to signal everyone to stop. Dong 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 dong. The sound of the big drum began to beat rapidly, and finally came to an abrupt stop. Everyone stopped and stood up neatly, and then everyone quickly took out a long sign from their sleeves, similar to the one held by ancient ministers when they went to court. The fat man also took out a token from his pocket like a magic trick. Then everyone behind him bowed in unison. Congratulations to Mr. Zhao for being ranked among the immortal class. Ba, bang, bang. There was a burst of applause from all around. The director of the funeral home was very pleased and said to a middle-aged man in a suit beside him, Mr. Zhao, are you satisfied with this? Satisfied, very satisfied. I hope it will be like this on the day of the funeral. Don't worry, that's for sure. This is the main project of our funeral home recently. We Chinese still need to promote our own culture. Funeral culture is actually a kind of our traditional culture. Yes, yes, I believe that my father's spirit will rest in peace in heaven. The director of the funeral home motioned to the deputy director below to sign the order. He walked over to the fat man who was drinking water and resting, reached out and patted the fat man on the shoulder. Bai, you did a good job. Thank you, curator. Can you give me some bonuses? No problem, I will give you a bonus for every order you take, so I will do what I say. The curator encouraged everyone again and then left. Brother Bai, you are really good. This is much more money than what we used to make by running around in the countryside doing nothing. A young man came up to the fat man and flattered him. What are you doing now? Tomorrow we will create an 8 immortals crossing the sea formation to completely blind their eyes. The fat man seemed very casual. Indeed, compared to his previous formations of moving mountains and filling seas, now it's just that if you direct 100 or so people to put on a show, you really won't gain much traction. But in life, the most important thing is RMB, and the rest does not matter. By the way, brother Bai, are you going to watch the fun later? What's the excitement? This is a funeral parlor. What's so interesting about the excitement of dead people? I heard that the body of a black man was delivered today and will be cremated in the afternoon. We have seen many other people cremated. I really want to see what color the ashes of a black man look like after he is cremated. The young man was only talking to himself and did not notice that the whole face of brother Bai next to him was so frightened that he was deformed. Master, thank you for your hard work. Master, Come to my house for dinner tonight. Master, go to my house. But, thank you all the donors, but today's work is not finished yet. The monk was wearing a long robe and still shoveling soil with a shovel in his hand. Behind him were a group of middle-aged people in suits and ties. Master, does this count as accruing merit? Yes, the monk responded. Then I will donate more money to this village tomorrow and hire a construction team to renovate this mountain road. Is it considered a good deed? To accumulate virtue, you have to practice it, the monk replied. I understand, Master, I understand. There were many dignitaries in the crowd, but they continued to do the work at hand under the leadership of Chi Li. For them, money and other enjoyments were somewhat looked down upon. How to accumulate virtue and pray for future generations was the most important thing. Their focus. The spring breeze was warm, and there were many passengers waiting for taxis under the Pudong International Airport terminal. Ying is a little thinner than half a year ago. Her figure used to be a little plump, but now she looks a little frail. Her studies have ended, and she has just returned from the United States and returned to the Magic City. For her, life must go on no matter what, and she does not allow herself to slack off at all. Every moment, she needs to live the most exquisite life. Because she was worried that she didn't know when that man would appear in front of her, and she didn't want her to see her decadent and ugly side. This is a common trait shared by every woman. No one can escape the beauty of a woman who pleases her. Hello, do you still know me? A man stood behind Ying. Ying turned around and saw a man wearing a burgundy suit. The man's clothes were rigorous and every detail of his body was meticulous. The most important thing was that he should have come back on the same plane as her. To be able to maintain absolute refinement after being on a plane for such a long time is enough to show the other party's persistence in such details. Hello, I really don't know you, Ying responded. You used to run a clinic, right? Our company is right above yours. It's a game company, the man reminded. Oh, I remembered, hello. Are you going back? The man asked. Let's go together. It's not very convenient to call a taxi here. My boss is driving. No need to bother, I have a friend to pick me up, Ying refused. Is he back? What? Ying couldn't understand. Oh, he didn't come back, the man shook his head. If he comes back, let me know. The man took out a piece of paper from his pocket and wrote down his mobile phone number. It was also a sign of respect that he didn't directly ask for WeChat or other contact methods. He and I have a good relationship, the man explained. Is it Subai? Ying asked. Yes, that's him. The man took a deep breath and exhaled heavily. Although the air in Shanghai is not as good as California, when I came back here, I felt that my life had power again. Good luck with your work. The same as you. California law allows same-sex marriage. Xiao Long Press. A man drove up in a car and honked the horn. My boss is here to pick me up, so bye. Goodbye. The man got into the car. In the car, he talked and laughed with his boss, and even reached out to help his boss straighten his tie. I don't know why, but seeing the actions of these two men, Ying felt a little sour in her heart. Soon, Ying waited for a taxi. She did not go back to her residence first, but returned to the building where she used to work. She didn't know why, but she wanted to come back here and take a look first. There was an old firefighter at the entrance of the corridor who was checking the firefighting equipment of the building. When Ying came over, the firefighter smiled at Ying, and Ying also smiled back. Brother Li, will your young master's funeral be held tomorrow? A colleague asked from the side. Well, it's tomorrow, the old firefighter replied. Then you went out to work today. Oh, forget it. Just say sorry. That's right. When people are busy, they don't have time to think. I still have a grandson. I came back this time just to take care of my grandson. You haven't been on vacation recently? It's nothing, it's nothing. It's good to be back. It's good to be back. You can continue to live your life. The office has not yet been sublet, and Ying Yinger had already returned it to Subai, but someone seemed to have extended the lease for 5 years, so the place remained the same. Ying Yinger found the cleaning supplies in the inner room and started cleaning. I just got off a long-distance flight and am very tired. But Ying Yinger insisted on continuing to clean the place. I was busy until the evening. A little tired and a little confused. I poured myself a glass of water and stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the neon lights flashing below. The cold city is also the cold night. Ying Yinger took out her mobile phone and opened a radio station app. 10 years ago, someone made statistics and found that the 3 major radio listening users are students, migrant workers, and drivers. Nowadays, with the popularity of smartphones, there are 2 major categories, drivers and lonely people. He said that time might be the last time we met. It's been so long. He really never contacted me again. It was as if he had really jumped into the sea of people, leaving no trace behind. He is still the same, he only thinks of himself when he needs her, and he is still the same, every time he needs her, he clings to her uncontrollably. One is willing to fight and the other is willing to suffer. There is no question of who suffers and who is irresponsible. Leaning against the window sill, Ying Yinger's hair was spread down and resting on her shoulders. What he held in his hand was obviously mineral water, but it tasted like wine after drinking it. There was some noise in the mobile phone's broadcast sound at this time. It seemed that there was some problem with the signal, but it soon returned to normal, but the tone changed at this time. Hello dear listeners. Welcome to the program Horror Radio / I. He's the show host. I have a name, my name is Subai. Here, I want to order a song for a girl as a gift to her. I know that she has just returned from studying abroad and she must be very lonely now. This song is Ho Sien's beloved concubine / I hope she can still be happy when I'm not around her, and she can continue to live happily. If you love her, give her the most beautiful stars and 12 hours. That night. Forever in my heart. May you be well. You can follow our public WeChat ID of Terror Broadcast, search and add Kongbu66, we will have more stories to share with you there. Alright. Next is today's story. Please everyone. Listen carefully. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 1111. I'm sorry that I posted the final chapter yesterday and only finished writing this review the next day because Long wanted to take a breather. Terror Broadcast is over. I saw some people saying that the ending was a little rushed, but Long actually felt the same way. But this is not a crime of war. Long has tried his best and implemented his original intention. Maybe it is because his level is still insufficient. In fact, looking at the current situation, there are only a few online novels with more than 3 million words that can achieve a perfect ending. Like Long, he can finish explaining what needs to be explained, say what needs to be said, and write it steadily until the last chapter. In fact, there aren't many of them. The vast majority of them are so desperate that they can't make enough money without finishing it. The quality is not good enough, I will try to make it up in the future. At least, compared to the ending of the previous Horror Online, Horror Broadcast is undoubtedly a success. When writing the final chapter, Long quietly refreshed the book review area. Some people said it was regretful, while others said I didn't read enough, but most of the messages were messages of congratulations on finishing the book, which made Long very happy and a little relieved. In fact, the beginning of the new book did take away some of Long's energy, but this is something that cannot be avoided. If Long was given the choice, the new book would still be released in advance to boost its popularity. This is life. It's hard to be perfect, and there will always be times of embarrassment and choices. For example, when writing the final chapter, Long only had time to smoke a cigarette. He wanted to take more time to savor the aftertaste of the ending, just like smoking afterward, but there was no way. After the cigarette ended, he opened it again. Word, write the next chapter of the new book because it will be published later. Life may have poetry and distance, but what you need to do now is to continue to face the ambiguity in front of you. Long has told everyone a long time ago that he would like to have a day when he can write books as he pleases without the pressure of life, but there will be a day, but at the moment, it is not possible yet. In fact, when Horror Broadcast no longer continues to release new story worlds and suspenseful story worlds, its theme and mission have actually ended. Long forced himself to write 1,000,000 words, just to get a result and to give everyone an explanation. Because of the appearance of characters such as Lao Fugui and Qin Jun, everyone may have forgotten that Terror Broadcast is, in the final analysis, an infinite novel, but it may have surpassed many conventions. Horror Broadcast has been with everyone for a long time, and Long has grown a lot because of this book. In fact, it is not only the so-called achievements and income, but also the change in mentality. From the high-spirited and high-spirited debut in HorrorNet to the sad ending in Horror Broadcast, to the calmness and peace of mind in writing stories in Horror Broadcast, perhaps this is the biggest gift that Horror Broadcast brings to Long. Thank you all for your company. In fact, there is no need for us to say goodbye here, because saying goodbye is too pretentious. Moreover, it has been almost 2 weeks since Long's new book He Came From Hell was released, and Long did not choose to take a break in the middle, so, we are still together. 10 days after the release of the new book He Came From Hell, 1 Silver Alliance member, 10 Alliance leaders, 50 helmsmen, nearly 1,000 people gave rewards, nearly 20,000 people collected them, and it directly entered the top 10 of the new book list. This is everyone's response. Long's affirmation over the past year or so is also a continuation of his companionship. In the new book at the same time, I speak my mind, no matter whether I am a great master or not, our results are the best and the most true. This, Long is very satisfied with. In fact, there are only a few niche literatures that can achieve such achievements in the entire starting point. I was reading a forum a few days ago and saw a comment from a person who said that Pure Little Dragon proves that there is a way to write niche articles, and you can still do well, and at the same time have a large number of hardcore fans. Of course, the premise is that you are like him. So well written. This evaluation is enough. It is everyone's support that allows Long to continue to write the stories he wants to write. It is also because of everyone's support that Long can continue to have income. There is no need to think about whether he needs to change his writing style and how to attract more readers. As an author, this is a very happy thing. You write the story you like, and there is a group of fans who follow you and like your story together. You don't need to watch the changes in the market, and you don't need to think about old white and small things. White readers' taste. Let's just do what we like to do. Cozy. Comfortable. Comfortable. Just like today's small art workshops, mechanized production outside will go away, and the trends outside will change with it. We just squat at home, polish a piece and hang it on the shelf, and regular customers will come to buy it the next day. I made money, bought some rice and some wine, and we continued to do the work at hand. The extras of Terror Broadcast will be written by Long Hui and will be posted on Long's public WeChat account. Because of the recommendation of new books, Terror Broadcast must become completed. This is the rule of Gideon. The extra chapter will write about Xiaoxian, Fatty Monk Buddha and many other characters, which is the final ending of the broadcast. You can follow Long's public WeChat account. The specific update date is to be determined. It may take a week or two to start writing, because recently, Long it's really a bit too tiring. Click Add Friend in the upper right corner of WeChat and search for Chen Chundi Xiaolong or Kongbu 66. If it shows that this person is not found, then click below to search for relevant articles, and the public account will appear. At last. Or the new book He Came from Hell. This book can be regarded as a breakthrough for Long in another direction. It can be said that it is a new peak for Long in terms of depth of conception and writing techniques. But in fact, Long is also a little uneasy in his heart. Perhaps, the writing is too it's more realistic, and maybe even more niche than before. Therefore, we need everyone's support even more. Don't panic. Hug the dragon.